The Jeep Wrangler has been built in Toledo, Ohio since 1941, and this factory has roots going all the way back to a bicycle shop in 1904. Picture this: a Wrangler blasting through a muddy river crossing, water exploding over the hood, tires clawing at slippery rocks. Smash cut to a massive factory floor in Toledo. Instead of trees and boulders, this Wrangler is dodging robots, conveyor belts, and sparks from welding guns. Same vehicle, same attitude, completely different battlefield. Out in the wild, the Wrangler is fighting gravity, mud, and terrain. In here, it's fighting for perfection. Panel gaps measured in millimeters, torque specs checked again and again, and a schedule so tight you could set your watch to it. This is the Toledo Assembly Complex. 312 acres of pure industrial muscle, a 3.6 million square foot manufacturing maze that has been the heart of Jeep for generations. Today, it's owned by Stellantis North America, but its story started long before acronyms and corporate mergers. Back in 1904, this site was a bicycle factory. Think about that? Before World War II, before Jeeps, before 4x4 was even a marketing term, workers were bending steel for bike frames at a place that would one day create the most iconic off-road vehicle in the world. In 1910, Willys Overland bought the plant, and the stage was set for something much bigger than anyone there could imagine. Back then, nobody could have pictured rock-crawling SUVs and plug-in hybrids coming out of the same ground. The early focus was simple: affordable transportation in the form of bicycles and early automobiles. But Toledo was already developing something important: a culture of making things out of metal and rubber that had to survive real life. When Willys Overland took over, the plant grew along with America's love affair with the automobile. Lines were added, buildings expanded, and this once modest factory started to become a serious industrial player. By the time World War II erupted, the world needed a new kind of machine, something tough, simple, and reliable enough to go anywhere a soldier could go, and a lot of places they probably shouldn't. That's when this humble Toledo facility became the primary production site for the original military Jeep, the Willys MB. Those boxy little war machines started life on these very grounds, assembled by people who knew that every bolt they tightened might be the difference between a truck that made it up a hill under fire and one that didn't. Imagine walking into work in 1942, knowing that the thing you build today might be on a battlefield in a few weeks. The wartime pressure turned Toledo into a 24/7 machine. Trains brought in raw materials, and Jeeps rolled out the other side in a steady stream. Assembly processes were simplified, parts were standardized, and the Jeep way of building, rugged, straightforward, and focused on function, was born. When peace returned, the military Jeep morphed into the civilian CJ models. Civilian Jeep, which carried farm equipment, families, surfboards, and everything in between. The plant adapted again, this time to build vehicles for peace, working the land, exploring trails, and eventually cruising to the office. Fast forward through decades of evolution, and that DNA flows straight into today's Wrangler. The shapes have softened a bit, the engines are more efficient, and the cabins are way more comfortable. But that idea of a simple, go-anywhere machine built in Toledo never left. So when a brand new Wrangler rolls off the line here in Toledo, it's not just another SUV. It's the latest chapter in an 80-plus year story that started with soldiers, farmers, and that little bicycle plant in 1904. It's a piece of rolling history, built in a factory that has grown, morphed, and modernized, but never lost its purpose: to build vehicles that don't flinch when the pavement ends. Now, zoom into the present. The Toledo North plant runs like a military operation of its own. 2 10-hour shifts, 6 days a week. More than 3,200 UAW represented employees hustling across the floor, each one a specialist in a single piece of the puzzle. Some focus on frames, some on paint, some on interiors, some on final inspection. Many of them can walk you through the exact station their parents or grandparents used to work. And the wild part? From a bare frame and boxes of parts to a fully finished Wrangler, gas or plug-in hybrid, takes about 24 hours. One day, your Wrangler spends less time being born than you probably spent watching reviews about it on YouTube. Let's follow that Wrangler from the ground up, because the story starts not with the body, not with the interior, but with the backbone, the frame. Wrangler uses a high-strength steel ladder frame, a brutally simple, old-school design that off-road fans swear by. It's not some unibody shell that crumples to save weight. It's a rigid spine that can twist, flex, and take hits without giving up. Raw steel rails arrive at the plant and are bent, cut, and pressed into shape before being brought into the welding area. Here, a mix of robots and skilled workers stitch the pieces together into a rigid ladder frame, the skeleton that everything else will bolt onto. You see robots swooping in with welding guns, tracing seams in perfect patterns, throwing showers of bright sparks into the air. Jig fixtures hold the frame rails in place while cross members are added. Every weld is monitored, every joint measured. If an angle is off, it's not just one car that's wrong, it's the whole production line. That's why quality checks at this stage are insanely strict, with measurements taken at multiple stations to ensure the frame geometry is dead on. Once a frame passes inspection, it's tagged and sent on. If not, it's pulled aside and corrected or scrapped. The Wrangler's strength literally starts here. Once the basic frame is assembled, operators begin installing suspension components, control arms, springs, dampers, axles, the pieces that will give the Wrangler its unique mix of articulation and toughness. Heavy-duty axles are wheeled in and positioned with robotic assists that allow workers to line everything up with surgical precision. Bolts are torqued to exact specs, and sensors confirm that nothing is missed. This thing isn't just being put together, it's being engineered in real time. At this point, the frame still looks bare, but if you look closely, the Wrangler's personality is already there. Solid front and rear axles instead of independent suspension. Big mounting points for skid plates, room for transfer cases and drive shafts. This isn't the undercarriage of a soft crossover. It's designed to be dragged over rocks, bounced off ledges, and driven through places where roads are more of a rumor than reality. Then comes one of the coolest moments on the frame line, the frame flip. Up to now, a lot of the work has been done with the frame in a position that makes it easy to reach the underside. But to install the powertrain, the engine, transmission, and transfer case, the frame needs to be upright. Enter a set of massive robots known on the floor as the frame flip. These machines clamp onto the completed frame, lift it into the air, and rotate it in a smooth, controlled motion, taking a raw piece of steel architecture and spinning it like it weighs nothing. This move is part show, part necessity. It's visually dramatic, a 4x4 skeleton pivoting midair under bright factory lights, but it's also the transition point from inert metal to potential vehicle. Once the frame is upright, workers and robots move in to install the Wrangler's heart and guts. The engine, transmission, transfer case, exhaust system, fuel tank, drive shafts, brake lines, and wiring harnesses start to come together. Before a single body panel is lowered into place, this rolling chassis already looks alive, like a bare-bones off-road rig ready to rumble. Powertrains arrive as pre-built modules from other facilities, but integrating them is an art of its own. The engine and transmission are hoisted into place with precision jigs that align mounting points within fractions of a millimeter. Once lowered onto the frame, workers secure them with high-torque fasteners while sensors confirm thread engagement and torque values. It's easy to forget watching this that every single Wrangler, no matter where it ends up in the world, has passed through this choreography. Around the chassis, you'll also see brake systems, fuel lines, and exhaust routing going in. Each routing path has been tested for clearance during full suspension travel and frame flex. The engineers designing these lines know that out on a trail, this hardware will see impacts, mud, water, and heat cycles that would destroy a typical commuter car. The factory has to make sure those design intentions become reality on every single unit. While all of that is happening down on the chassis line, something very different is going on elsewhere in the plant. Bodies are being born. Body shells start as flat steel sheets that get pressed into complex shapes by massive stamping machines. Roof panels, doors, fenders, hoods, all of them are stamped, trimmed, and welded into a complete shell. Gigantic dies slam down with tons of force, transforming flat metal into recognizable Wrangler shapes in milliseconds. Robots and humans then stitch these panels together at the body shop. Automated welders trace long seams while human workers step in for tight corners, reinforcements, and checkups. The result is a bare steel Wrangler body just waiting for personality. This is also where choices like 2-door versus 4-door, hardtop versus soft-top preparation, and different trim level provisions start to appear. Mounting points, brackets, and reinforcements vary slightly depending on the final spec, and the production system has to keep track of each VIN's unique build sheet as it moves along the line. To an outsider, every bare body might look similar. To the plant's tracking system, they're all different. But raw steel can't go out into winter roads and muddy trails. It needs protection and style. So those bodies roll into the paint shop, one of the most tightly controlled environments in the entire complex. Before any color goes on, each body shell is dipped, literally submerged, in anti-corrosion baths that coat every nook and cranny. Think of it as the Wrangler's first shield against rust, salt, and decades of hard use. Any trapped air bubbles are a problem, so the shell is tilted, rotated, and moved through multiple tanks to ensure complete coverage. Next comes the sealers and primers. Workers and robots apply seam sealer along every joint where water might try to sneak in. Around door openings, roof seams, tailgates, and windshield frames, beads of sealer ensure that what the customer experiences as a leak never starts in the first place. After that, robot arms take over, dancing around the shell with spray guns, laying down primer, base coat, and clear coat in smooth, even layers. The path of each robot is pre-programmed but constantly adjusted based on sensors that read panel position and coverage. This is where the Wrangler turns from raw industrial object into something you'd recognize at a dealership. Sting Gray, Hydro Blue, Firecracker Red, Sarge Green. Whatever color you obsess over in the configurator, it starts to come to life here, inside a climate-controlled paint booth in Toledo. The airflow, humidity, and temperature are all tuned so that dust doesn't settle and paint cures evenly. Any defect bigger than a tiny speck means rework, and rework means time. Time is the enemy of a plant that runs 2 10-hour shifts. As the paint cures, interior build begins on parallel lines. Dashboards, seats, wiring harnesses, headliners, and door panels are assembled into sub-modules. Each of these units will later be slotted into the painted body in a fast choreographed dance. You might see workers building a complete instrument panel, gauge cluster, vents, infotainment screen, wiring, airbag modules on a rolling bench. Once finished, that whole module will be swung into the cabin and bolted up in just a few minutes at a mainline station. It's modular manufacturing. Build the complex stuff separately, then snap it together quickly on the main line. Eventually, painted bodies arrive on the trim line. Here, the shells get their glass, dashboard, pedals, steering column, wiring networks, carpets, headliners, and more. Doors may be removed temporarily for easier access and then reinstalled later. Workers move fast but methodically, each station responsible for a small slice of the process. Overhead screens show torque specs, model variations, and alerts in real time. A Wrangler headed for Europe might need different lighting or emissions-related components than one for North America, and the system keeps track of those details automatically. Every part has a barcode, and the system constantly checks that the right components are going into the right Jeep. If a worker scans the wrong part for that VIN, the system throws a flag. The goal is to make mistakes hard to commit and easy to catch. In a plant this size, a single wrong part that slips through can ripple all the way to a customer on another continent. Meanwhile, remember that chassis we left behind? It's fully built at this point. Engine, transmission, axles, suspension, wheels, brakes, fuel system, exhaust, everything needed to move under its own power. It's sitting there on a conveyor, like a complete skeleton rolling down the line, waiting to meet the body that will define its look. This is where we arrive at one of the most visually dramatic moments in the entire factory. Body marriage. In an area often nicknamed the marriage station, a powerful robot lifts the completed chassis, frame, axles, powertrain, and all, and transfers it onto a special conveyor system. That conveyor lines up the chassis precisely with a Wrangler body coming down from the trim line above. Timing here is everything. If the body and chassis are out of sync, the whole process falls apart. The body descends, the chassis rises, and in a matter of seconds, the two separate halves become one vehicle. Bolts are driven through body mounts, sensors confirm alignment, and suddenly, this thing that was a collection of parts is now a Jeep Wrangler. Watching it, you get the sense of two stories merging. The rugged mechanical underpinnings built for abuse, and the painted comfortable shell built for humans. Right there, in that moment, they lock together. It's also the moment a lot of workers quietly think of as the birth of the Wrangler. Before marriage, you have a body and a frame. After marriage, you have a Jeep. From here on out, the Wrangler is treated like a complete vehicle. Fluids are added: oil, coolant, brake fluid, fuel. Wheels are torqued. Bumpers are attached, fender flares installed, badges applied. Doors and hoods are aligned and checked so they close with the right feel. Computer systems are powered up, and the vehicle's digital brain gets its programming. Lights, wipers, infotainment, sensors, it all gets tested. Once the painted shell and interior modules are ready, the Toledo plant starts doing something that feels a bit like building a Lego set at 1-to-1 scale. The body glides along the trim line on a conveyor, and at each station it gets another layer of identity. One station drops in the pre-built dashboard, sliding it through the door opening and locking it into place with brackets and bolts. Another team fits the steering column, connecting the physical wheel you'll hold to the electronic systems that control airbags, stability control, and all the modern safety tech that quietly watches your every move. Glass installation is another surprisingly intense moment. Those big flat Wrangler windshields and removable rear windows don't just get slapped in and sealed with hope. Precision robots and human installers apply adhesive beads around the openings, then vacuum lifters position each piece of glass exactly where it needs to be. Too much pressure and it could crack. Too little and you might end up with wind noise or leaks. It's a careful balance of speed, accuracy, and experience. Doors are a whole story on their own. Many Wranglers are built with their doors removed from the body, riding along on parallel carriers so interior workers can move in and out of the cabin without obstruction. On the door line, you've got another mini assembly operation going on. Window regulators, latch mechanisms, speakers, door handles, wiring harnesses, and seals all come together into a fully functional door module. Later, those same doors get reattached, aligned, and adjusted so they'll shut with that satisfying solid thunk instead of a hollow rattle. Underneath the body, while all this is happening, teams are threading in wiring harnesses, the nervous system of the Jeep. These harnesses carry power and data to everything from headlights and turn signals to airbag sensors and the infotainment screen. Clips hold them in place along the roof, behind interior panels, and through the firewall. One misplaced clip can mean a harness rubs on bare metal for thousands of miles, eventually causing an electrical gremlin. That's why there are checklists and visual inspections at every stage. Interior finishing is where the personality of each Wrangler really takes shape. Cloth or leather seats, basic or premium audio, analog heavy gauge clusters or screens with off-road pages and hybrid stats. This is where your option boxes from the configurator finally become real. Workers snap in center consoles, route USB and power ports, mount grab handles, and fit trim pieces around roll bars or sport cages. Headliners go in, carpets get tucked and clipped, and even the little details like stitching and emblem placement are checked. By the time the body leaves the trim line, it doesn't feel like a hollow shell anymore. It looks like a real vehicle from the belt line up. Painted, glazed, wired, and furnished. If you could drop it on a random chassis right then, you'd recognize it instantly as a Wrangler, but it still doesn't have the core of what makes a Jeep a Jeep. the frame and drive line that can actually conquer the stuff you see in commercials. And that's where the choreography becomes really impressive. Somewhere else in the plant, that complete chassis, frame, axles, powertrain, wheels is rolling into position. The software running this place knows exactly which body and which chassis belong together. It knows if this one gets a gas engine or a 4xe hybrid setup, if it's left-hand drive or right-hand drive, if it's headed for the US, Europe, or somewhere with totally different regulations. All that information travels with the vehicle as a digital build sheet, and the entire system is synchronized so body and chassis meet at the perfect moment. This is the calm right before one of the most dramatic steps in the whole process. The moment when all these separate lines, frame, chassis, body, interior, electronics, finally converge and you watch a Wrangler in real time become whole. Beyond the machines, there's a human rhythm to this place. Generations of families have worked here. You'll meet people whose grandparents built military Jeeps, whose parents assembled CJs and early Wranglers, and who now bolt together 4xe hybrids with battery packs and software updates. For them, seeing a Wrangler on the road isn't just seeing a product. It's seeing a day's work out in the wild, doing exactly what it was designed to do. Every Wrangler that leaves this place carries that story. It's not just built in America, it's built in the same city, on the same legacy line that cranked out the original military Jeep. When the world was on fire, it's built by thousands of workers doing 10-hour shifts, 6 days a week, who know that the vehicles rolling past them might end up on a trail in Moab, a beach in Australia, or a driveway in the middle of nowhere, and that someone out there is trusting this machine not to quit when they're miles from the nearest cell signal. So the next time you see a Wrangler splash through a river, climb a rock ledge, or just rumble past you downtown with its doors off and windshield folded, remember, that moment started here, in Toledo, in the echo of a bicycle factory from 1904, in the shadow of World War II assembly lines, in a 312-acre complex where robots and human hands team up to build something that's equal parts tool, toy, and time capsule. If you want more deep dives into how the world's most iconic machines are actually built, the stories, the factories, the people, and the insane engineering that makes them possible, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Drop a comment with the next vehicle or factory you want us to visit, and we might just take you there in the next episode.